I work in collaboration with Brad that left, but you know him, Brad Marston, and Pierre Delplace is a colleague in Lyon, and he works in condensed matter, and you will see the link after between Delplace and what we do. So it's about equatorial waves, and we have seen a lot of equatorial waves so far. So I just remind you the dispersion relation that was first computed by Matsuno in the 60s, and it was actually, I think, computed before the waves were observed. And Caroline and then other Caroline Müller, and then in other presentation we saw this also. Caroline showed that there is really a robust signature of some of those waves in observations. So at high frequency, so this is frequency, wave number in the meridional direction. At high frequency we have an inertia gravity wave or Poincaré wave. So let's call it Poincaré. Then at low frequency we have the geostrophic mode, and we have also a Rossby wave of planetary waves. So you can plot them too, like this. And then there are two other waves. So those are Rossby. Let's put it there. Planetary. And then there are two other waves. So there is this one. This is the equatorial Kelvin wave. So Kelvin. And there is another one in red too. So these waves is sometimes called mixed Rossby gravity waves because it connects the Poincaré inertia gravity wave to the low frequency Rossby waves. But it's also called Yanai wave because it was observed by Yanai almost simultaneously with Matsuno computations. So let's call it Yanai. Okay, so there are in this. So this is a dispersion. I recall it computed. I say it by Matsuno, and on with the assumption that the Coriolis parameter is beta y, equatorial beta plane. So there are exact expression for this dispersion relation, and Henk showed the Hermite polynomials solution for this expression. And here I want just stress some striking features in this dispersion. So the first striking feature is the fact that here there is a frequency gap. If you forget about the Kelvin and Yanai wave, there is a frequency gap between Poincaré and Rossby wave. So there is a frequency gap. Rossby and Poincaré. And this gap, what is important is that it tends to 0 when the Coriolis parameter, say here beta, so we take a given radius of Earth and we decrease the rotation rate. And when this rotation rate tends to 0, this gap tends to 0. So the gap is really opened by the rotation. The second thing which is striking about this dispersion is that if you look at the Rossby wave, you take a given frequency and you will have one Rossby wave with a slope in one direction, with a group velocity in one direction, and another Rossby wave with a group velocity in the other direction. Same for inertia gravity wave if you follow a line, you see here. And so for the Kelvin and Yanai wave, there is something very special. Is that the group velocity is always eastward. So they are, in that sense, they are unidirectional. Okay, the Kelvin wave, the phase velocity is also eastward. The Yanai wave, the phase velocity change sign. So phase is omega over k. So for the Yanai, it changes sign, but the group velocity is always the same sign. So this is the important thing. So Kelvin and Yanai. So first they fill the frequency gap, and second they are unidirectional. And by this I mean that the group velocity is positive. Yes, if the sign of beta change, you would not have the solid line. You would reverse the Rossby here, and the Yanai would be the opposite one, and same for Kelvin. Yes. Okay. So why is it striking, these two properties? That if you show this plot to someone doing condensed matter, for instance Pierre Delplace, you will say, oh, I know this kind of dispersion relation in solid state physics when you have bands for electronic states, and we have a conduction band and valence band, and you impose an energy, so here omega becomes the energy, and here it's become momentum, or K, and there are some kind of material, strange material, that are called topological insulators. We'll see why. So they look like insulators because there is a gap, and usually the gap is not always the case, but I think in most cases the gap is opened by something like rotation that breaks some symmetry. And so this would be the dispersion relation for this material without boundaries. So there will be the conduction, the valence band, and each point here in the dispersion relation corresponds to an electronic state. And this is an insulator because if your electron has air, they cannot jump easily from here to here to conduct. Okay, and what happens is that as soon as you take a finite sample or you couple it to an ordinary insulator, the strange material called topological insulator, there will be an edge state, and so this edge state will be unidirectional, like this. And so this is the surrounding is something trivial material. This is my topological insulator. At the edge here, I will have something traveling and conducting. Okay. So this looks a little bit analog to this. So the analogy by itself would not be so interesting. But what is very interesting is that people in condensed matter over the last few decades, they have understood a lot of things about those edge states for the electronic states. Really what they look at is the linear operator, what are the eigenmodes, etc. So it's the same problem than our problem. And what they have understood is the link between the existence of those edge states and the discrete symmetries that exist or that are broken in the system, and the correspondence between some topological properties that I will present for our case later. In the case where we have an unbounded system, in our case the unbounded system will be, say, the shallow water fluid on F-planes. This will be our material. And then we will look what happens when we put a boundary, and our boundary will be the equator that connect positive F-planes to negative F-planes. So this will be the outline. So now I spoke about Yanai wave and Kelvin wave, equatorial Kelvin wave. So as I said, this was computed for beta plane, and I would like to make one step back and go back to the F-plane solution. So yes, F-plane solution. and see if we can learn something from the problem that Kelvin looked already at before to compute shallow water eigenstate on unbounded geometry. So this is the second. Then I would like to compute topological properties of the shallow water waves in this configuration. What I mean by this is that we will consider family of eigenmodes on F-planes, and when those family of eigenmodes are parameterized on a closed surface, we will see that there are singularities, and we will count that this number of singularities. This will be the topological invariance for the F-plane solution. So, and this will be quantified by something called a Chern number. And then I will not show you, not prove you, but use the bulk boundary correspondence that relates the Chern number computed for the F-plane solution to the existence of edge modes when we glue together two F-plane solutions. So this will be the bulk edge or bulk boundary correspondence. Okay, so first this was one. So the F-plane, so linearized linear shallow water equation on F-plane. So we saw those equations many times. First, so eta is the interface height variation, plus h is the mean depth, dx u plus dy v equals 0. Then dt u minus fv equal minus g dx eta, dtv plus fu equal minus g dy eta. Okay, I will just work with other variable to express the system much simpler manner. So here I will consider a case. Okay, f is constant, but at the end we will take it as an external parameter that will vary. Okay, and so typically we want to stay on Earth, so it will vary between 2 omega, minus 2 omega and 2 omega. There is an important velocity in this problem. It is the gravity, surface, the speed of gravity waves. And we will replace, so we will use x prime equal x over LD, the Rossby radius of deformation is c over 2 omega. U prime equal u over c. What else? F prime equal f over 2 omega. And that's eta prime equal eta over h. Okay, when we do this, yes, x prime equal x over LD, so x is xy, and u is u vector is u and v. By this way, we can write the system. So I drop the prime from no, eta u v, and then delta x minus delta y 0 minus delta x y 0 f minus f eta u v. So this might be suggestive, this matrix, for those that are used to Hamiltonians, but it's not so for wave equation for electrons. But there is another interest here to put the equation that way. and it's just a small parenthesis. What do you say, parenthesis? Parenthesis. Okay, good. Uh, so what I wanted to say? Ah, yes. So before the parenthesis, an important remark that could have been made before, and I said it already, but quickly, is that this system, is it reversible with with time reversal? Is it invariant to time reversal symmetry? The response is that yes, only if f is 0, because let's look at u change in t becomes minus t. So if you want this to be invariant, you have to change u minus u, v minus v, and f in minus f. So if f is given, this system is not time reversal invariant. So we say that f breaks the time reversal symmetry. Okay, and so often in condensed matter, but again, it's not always the case. The time reversal symmetry is broken by considering magnetic fields, which gives the Lorentz force, the equivalent of the Coriolis force for our case. So I say this because this will be very important in the following. When f is non-zero, the system is no more time reversal invariant, and we will see a consequence of this. So this is important because this morning we saw in TED lecture that symmetries are related to it was continuous symmetry, but it was related to those continuous symmetry. They had important consequences because they were related to invariance, and the invariants have in turn physical manifestation, such as stable states, multiple steady states, etc. So it was the case of continuous symmetry, and in this case we will see that there are also an invariant related to time reversal symmetry. Also, this is a bit different because this time non-trivial invariants will be found in the system in the case where time reversal symmetry is broken. So now I come to the parenthesis I wanted to make just about this system. So apart from this, I will consider unbounded geometry in this part, but it's just a remark on the solution of those equations in closed domain, in closed basin. So let's try to make two basins a bit similar. They're supposed to be the same. And so we have a boundary. So I don't want to enter into detail about to compute the eigenmode. But I just want to remark that if you take f equals 0, so this operator will always have a purely real or purely imaginary, depending on if you put an I or not. It doesn't matter. Eigenvalues. But the eigenvectors could be purely real or could be complex. And the answer will depend on breaking or not the time reversal symmetry. Because if f is 0 ici, this operator is symmetric. Well, it's more complicated than this because there is this derivative, but let's say it's symmetric. And then the eigenmodes will be real. And if you take a real function of two variables and you look for where it becomes 0, generically it will be lines. So the eigenmodes here typically will vanish on lines. So it corresponds to the sloshing mode that you would have in a small lake. Okay, so the amplitude vanish on lines typically for those eigenmodes. Now, what happens when we break time reversal symmetry? We had this f, and this is a skew symmetric part of the matrix. And then the solution will become complex. So okay, at the end you take the real part of a complex function when you look for standing waves. But because it's become a complex function, to cancel the amplitude, generically you will cancel the amplitude of the real part, a line, of the imaginary part, a line too, and so generically the point where the amplitude vanish will be a point. And so this is the rotating case. Let's say f on at 0 and f equals 0. And then typically you have this kind of thing. And we saw already last week such plots. Yes. Yes. Wait, go on. Yes, that's what I say. Oh, purely. Okay. I should have put I here. Uh, yeah. Yes. Yes. All right. Uh, yes. Ah, yes, you can mix with the mirror symmetry. Yes. Mm, for this example, or for the remaining? Because the switching sign between f and the compare, so uh, the discrete symmetries are not symmetric in the sense that you can, and you see it here that play does not say f, the time reversal symmetry breaking parameter, does not play the same role as the spatial variable. But I don't know what happens when you play with those spatial mirror symmetries. But they have no reason a priori for this problem to induce properties like this one. And I will say at the end actually something about it, because we could wonder more generally when we break some other discrete symmetries such as inversion symmetry in the vertical direction, what happens with gravity. We can have gaps such as for acoustic gravity waves, and those gaps can be filled with edge modes, but it's not clear whether they are topological such as those ones. So yes. Yes. It was just an example of eigenmodes. Generically, eigenmodes in a closed basin without f, there will be sloshing mode like this, and the amplitude would vanish on lines. It could be more complicated. I mean, you could have patterns like this, but the amplitude would vanish always only on lines. While as soon as you get rotation, you get a structure like this that turn with the phase varying around points like this that are called amphidromic points. So this is what we see for tides. So this is so I mentioned this because later on, so I do not want to discuss the effect of boundary in that case, but I just wanted to mention amphidromic points because they correspond to singularities, and when you move around the amphidromic points, that correspond those lines are co-tidal lines. The phase varies by 2 pi, and you could move the boundary. You could deform your system, and you can. But so the mode will change, but you will not get rid of the amphidromic point. And later we will compute a topological invariant, which is a little bit, I take quotes, but like amphidromic point. So, there is one thing that the condensed matter physicists often say no, when they work in this field. They often say that when we look at the dispersion relation, it's kind of trivial, but it's good to say it. We lose a lot of information from the operator that we have linearized, and I will explain what kind of information we lose. So now we consider this problem, and we will look at solution in unbounded geometry. So let's call this vector psi. This is psi. Yes, this is psi. And we say that psi, remember just that psi is a 3-component vector till the end. we will. Oh, I should put this like this, and then it will be easier. Omega t minus e k x x minus e k y y. Okay, and now the system become e omega psi equal 0. What's this one? It's minus plus e kx e ky e kx ky and f. Okay, we remove y minus y. Okay, so that way it answer. Yes. Now it's symmetric. So okay, so we already saw the solution of for the dispersion relation of the f-plane many times. So we have one solution, just zero frequency, and then we have another solution which will be called plus or minus f square plus k square with k square kx square plus ky square. Okay, so when we say that we lose information, we can now see it, that we have this, and I should write the zero frequency mode like this. Okay, this is not discretized, this band is filled, let's say kx omega, and so we have lost a lot of information, because look at this dispersion relation. Can we see that it's that we have broken time reversal symmetry? You cannot say f is positive or negative, right? Just by looking at this. Yes. Yes. All the waves are trapped. Okay, the question is that is in the original problems, are all the waves trapped?
Well, that wasn't really my question.
Okay. So that's an affirmation.
What you're considering.
Yes.
My understanding was that in that problem, you
Yes.
write just the zonal wave number and you write the frequency, because your understanding is that the meridional structures, they're all trapped in this particular magic equatorial beta plane way.
Yes.
Now here you're considering a system where the waves are unbounded in both spatial directions, and like there is the wave number in the y direction you could have here as well. So isn't that quite a big difference? I mean, I'm not quite sure.
No, that's the point. Is that I want to show that those one, if you deform the beta plane, say, okay, I draw it now up. So this is y, this is f. So the case of this is the Matsuno case, the beta plane. Now we will deform this into something like this. And what I want to say is that in that case, indeed, all those waves, they are trapped. But when you will deform your plane into something that would be squeeze the Earth with F-plane, you take the Earth, you squeeze it, and there would be one F-plane, one another F-plane, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, so like this. And then you will sort the waves between those that will be delocalized, those one. They were trapped in that case, but you can deform it continuously into, by changing the beta plane into this hyperbolic tangent, to a case where they will be delocalized, while those one, they won't be. You can't get rid of it. They will be edge states. So they are all kind of trapped in this equatorial waveguide, but the origin of those two waves for their existence is those relief come from the fact that they are topological edge states. They are not trapped for topological reasons, they trapped for geometrical reasons, the other waves. That will be the difference. So the quantity now that we want to compute is that we will consider all the eigenstates. So this band, we call it omega plus, omega minus, omega 0. Okay. The information that we can extract from the spectrum comes from the eigenmodes. We have the eigenvalues. Now we look at the eigenmodes, and we will look at the eigenmodes parameterized in parameter space corresponding to this frequency band. And in this family of eigenmodes, we will see that there are singularities. So this will be the additional information which is robust in the sense that if you change your system, you will keep this information, this topological number. So let me give you I will not diagonalize the matrix on the fly. So I just give you the expression of the eigenvector for the positive frequency band, yeah, because this will be important in the following. And really the thing that you have to keep in mind is that we can have robust information which are invariant from family of eigenvectors. So I give you the expression. So it's k over. And the other thing important to remember is that the eigenvector, they are defined up to a phase. Okay, this will be important. And they are normalized. So kx over k. Remember k is k square is kx square plus ky square. Ky. And the last one, ky over k plus yf kx k square plus f square. Okay, now we would like to kind of a feeling of what are this family of eigenmodes in parameter space. And so what is the parameter space? In that case, it's easy to see. Let's look at the vector, eigenvector, and it only depends on kx, ky, and f. So we will look at f, yes, kx, ky, and well, just coming back to the dispersion relation, I want to mention one particular point in parameter space. This one, because at this point, f equals 0, and the dispersion relation for f equals 0 is, remember, let's put just kx, is this. So at this point, for f equal 0, kx equal 0 and ky equal 0, there is a bound crossing point. It will be very important for the remaining because all the singularities that will appear then comes from this bound crossing point. And you can have a feeling why there is a singularity coming from here, that the notion of bound doesn't mean anything at this point, right? Okay, so we will consider sorry? Sorry, it's terrible. Up. This, okay, that was omega and kx. Yes, sorry about this. So we'll consider one point here. And so we will introduce angles which should not be confused with the angles, the polar coordinate for the Earth. We are really in parameter space. So we'll find the co-latitude for this. We will look at the eigenvector here. Okay, so here we have theta, and here we have phi. Okay, and now to see a little bit what happens for those eigenvector, we will express things in terms of theta and psi. So k over k square plus f square, what is it? It's sine theta. This one, it's kx k. So this is k, kx k cosinus phi minus e sine phi, and here it's cos theta, and here it's the opposite, it's sinus phi plus I up cos phi sin theta, cos theta. So you already see that actually this eigenvector doesn't depend on the frequency. So this is frequency because this is f square plus k square plus ky square, and this was the frequency for the positive frequency band. And so let's look at different particular angle. In particular, what happens when theta equal 0, so at the North Pole. When theta equals 0, so here it's 0, here it's cos phi minus e sin phi, and here sin phi plus I cosine phi. So it looks like this. We can write it that way. It's 0. What should I? No, let's keep it that way. Sorry. So here, what we note is that when theta equals 0, this vector is multi-evaluated. Okay. Take theta equals 0. You're here. And at this point, you can change psi from 0 to 2 pi, or whatever value you want to, and you will have different vector. So you have a singularity here. You have something like this. It's schematic because I draw vectors. Those vectors, I remember you, there are 3 components corresponding to eta, u, and v, and here is parameter space. But we have singularities here at this point. We can go to the south pole of parameter space, so in this line. So now theta equal to pi, and again this will be 0, and again we will have another singularity, but of the opposite sign. The eigenvector will be multi-evaluated at this point. Okay, so I said that the eigenmodes, they are defined up to a phase. So we could have chosen a phase such that we remove the singularity. Okay, in particular, we could define psi plus north equal a e phi psi. And if we do this, indeed, we will remove the fact that it's multi-evaluated at the north, but then we will have 2 singularity at the south. Yes? So if theta equal to 0 here, you're on this line, and on this line, when you vary phi, you stay at the same point. So you remain in parameter space at the same point, you vary phi, and when you vary phi, this vector varies. It turns. It's cosinus phi minus e sin phi, I sin phi. So varying phi makes the vector rotate, and so you can. It means that at these points you do not have a single eigenmode, but they live in a two-dimensional space. So that's what I mean by this. So we can remove this singularity at one pole by changing the phase. But when we do this, we will make the vector of the in the southern pole rotate twice from 4 pi. What I mean by this is that we cannot get rid of the singularities. We can remove the singularity from one place in parameter space, but it will come back in another place. Okay. So now we would, in a way, we could have skipped this part and compute right away the topological number. But what I want to tell you is that the number that we will compute now, the topological property, really comes from those singularities in parameter space for the eigenmode. Yes? Yes, in that case it corresponds to this. Yes.
But so you have singularity when you are at the north of that or at the south pole.
Yes.
This is wave number 0, right? Exactly 0. So
Yes.
what kind of waves are those?
That's a good point. Is that then we are in unbounded geometry, but we will see that those singularities they will correspond to edge states where there are boundaries.
Ah, okay.
So yes, it's a good point. So so now I come to the third part. We want to quantify those singularities, and we will see that indeed they are given by a topological number. So it's a Chern number. So I make just a small detour to topological properties of object. Okay, you know that we can deform continuously. I will not find, there is no mug here. Okay, the mug from the coffee to donut, but not glass of water to a donut, but we can deform the glass to an orange. Okay, so these are topological properties because will be the number of holes or handle in your object. This is one example of topological properties. And the thing is that this property is invariant under smooth deformation. So this is the whole point of this, is to describe properties of the system that will be invariant under smooth deformation, in our case to the problem parameters or to the existence of impurities and so on. But okay, the question is how can I deform a glass into an orange? No, I cannot do this. But glass flow. That's probably a bad example I took, because the glass looks like 2D. But well, another example of topological singularities that are perhaps closer to the one we will describe is that you know the Hairy-Ball theorem, that which is put in geophysical terms, is that if we have a continuous field of vector tangent to a sphere, there must be a point where it vanishes. We cannot get rid of it. Okay. So there is one point. So if it is continuous, there is one point where the amplitude vanishes. And this is the topological properties for the waves we will describe at closer to this example, and I will tell you why. So let's stay in parameter space, and we will consider a two-dimensional manifold that enclose these points that poses problem, because it is the points where the band are crossing. So if we enclose this point, we are sure that the bands are well defined, because the only point where they are not defined is at this here, and we enclose it, and we consider a sphere. here. So it's a sphere of constant frequency. Okay, and now the object we have here, parameter space, that at each point corresponds to the eigen modes of the system for the positive frequency band, in that case, defined up to a phase. Okay, so it's called a fiber bundle. In the case of vector tangent to a sphere, we would have our sphere, and at each point of the sphere we take the tangent planes, and there are many possible vectors, and we can take a section of the fiber bundle by choosing a vector at each point. Okay? And what we will see in our case here, it will be not the vector tangent to the sphere, but the eigenmodes that we have computed here, and a section of the fiber bundle will be given by the choice of the phase. Okay, and the existence of singularities will reflect the impossibility to continuously define the phase, and those singularities really. So we will now live on this sphere, and those singularities will correspond to the one that we have seen here. So let's come back to the donut and to the sphere first. Yes.
Just a question of definition. So the fiber bundle is a set of all vectors on the tangent plane.
In the case, yes, but okay. For that case, we do not have tangent vector, right? In our case, the fiber bundle will be all the eigenmodes defined up to a phase here. Okay. This is, say, okay, let's call it like this.
Yeah.
Okay, it's dependent on A, and here at each point I take, say, plus A, with A varying between minus infinity and plus infinity. And we can move this eigenvector on this sphere. So, so there is in topology a result which is very beautiful. Coming back to the donut and the sphere, that connect the number of holes or handles in your object to, so it's a global property, to the local geometry. In that case, the curvature of the manifold. So this is called Gauss-Bonnet theorem. And what it says, so here you have a sphere of of genus is it 0 up, and G equal 1 for the torus. So genus is really the number of holes, and so it's a sphere. And now let's take a small element of surface here called dA, and locally here we can define the curvature of the manifold. So it's a two-dimensional manifold. So locally we can, if you take one section, we can look at the curvature, and there are two principal directions. There are the two curvatures, and so we can define Gaussian curvature K1 over R1 R2. Okay, and the Gauss-Bonnet theorem relates this local curvature, so over the two-dimensional manifold. So you integrate the curvature about the whole manifold, and you find that is 1 minus G. So this is an integer. Okay, so you have, it's really a strong result, because you integrate something, you can deform as much as you want here, so you modify the local properties, and at the end you get the same number. And okay, if you think of the sphere. This is 1 over r square, so it will be 1 over 2 pi times r square equal 2, because g equals 0, so you recover the area of the sphere. You're fine. That's the only thing I can say about this relation. So then, in our case, we will use, in order to compute the Chern number that quantify the number of singularities, those family of eigenmodes here, we will use a generalization of this Gauss-Bonnet, which is due to Chern in the 40s. Okay, and the generalization says that when we integrate a curvature, so now the curvature will be, we can write it as a vector that we call B. So B is often called Berry curvature times dA. So now let's take an element of surface like this, normal to the manifold. So here, this is where we are. We will not consider a torus, but for our problem. And in that case, it is this has to be equal to an integer. We'll call it, okay, I put a delta C. We'll see why at the end. So what is B? It's called a curvature. And just as in the case of the Gauss-Bonnet theorem, it can be related to local properties, which means that I should be able to express it in terms of these eigenmodes, because this is my object I want to describe. And I will just keep this. So this curvature, which is a little bit like a magnetic field, you can express it in terms of another vector, like a potential vector, called the Berry connection. And this Berry connection, you can express it in terms of the eigenmode. So psi plus time the gradient. I put a p because it's parameter. So this gradient is in parameter space. So it will be df, dx, dy, dk. Sorry, dkx, dky. And remember that psi is a 3-component object. Okay, you can write it as psi eta plus u plus v plus, and psi equal eta plus the conjugate eta plus. So it's the standard inner product. It's just to tell you that really we can do this step by step. Okay, I will not have time to actually compute this, but really, believe me, it's not difficult, because either you can take your expression here, plug, so you take this derivative, you can express it as a gradient on the sphere, then you compute the inner product, complete the magnetic field, and you can integrate it. It's easy, but there is even easier. There is a trick. You can here use a Stokes theorem, but to use it you have to be careful, because there are singularities we saw on the sphere. So you have to choose well the phase for your stream function. And if you change the phase of your eigenvector, if you change the phase, A will change, but B will not change. Okay, this is the important point. And by choosing the right phase, you can compute this quantity, and you find, in our case, you find 2. Okay. I have just 5 minutes left, so. I can do it. I mean, And so, yes. Go on.
Like, how can a dot product be a vector?
So, okay, let me. I can write it. So it will be up minus e eta star plus dx df eta star plus. Yeah, okay, yes. So for the 5 to 10 minutes that left, I would like to come to the bulk edge correspondence, because this is just a computation, but then the interpretation is perhaps more interesting. So we have this number that quantifies the number of singularities that we had on the sphere. We find 2, and so it's DC, let's call it plus, because it is for the positive frequency band 2. For the middle band, so the geostrophic mode, we find 0, and for the negative frequency band, we can find -2, and you could find this minus easily just by looking at the symmetries, right? So, and those 2 really corresponds to those 2 singularities that we saw when we look at the eigenvector. So we have.
I thought you constructed that delta c by an integral over that bounding sphere.
Yes.
So that takes north and south and everything.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I come back to this right now. Okay. So this is important. So now I come back to the. I want to glue together. This will be the northern hemisphere, and here 2 omega minus 2 omega, and here the southern hemisphere. Okay, so first let's forget about the interface. Okay, and let's look at the dispersion. So let's assume that we are far from the interface and we live in an unbounded geometry, and the dispersion relation is like this. Okay, we have the geostrophic mode, the positive and negative frequency band. Now we take the northern hemisphere, we do the same. Okay, and what we have computed here, indeed, is the connection. We took here a constant frequency, a sphere at constant frequency, and so it corresponds to take here, say, line at constant frequency, kx. And what we have shown is that when we take all the vector on a circle at constant frequency, and we want to transform it into so we take them in the northern hemisphere, we want to transform them into a bundle of vector in the southern hemisphere, this, and the connection between one and the other corresponds to the existence of a singularity of 2. Okay, same for the negative frequency. We have delta c, and for the 0 frequency we have delta c. So what does it mean, this delta c equal to, when we go from there, northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere at a given frequency? It means that we cannot construct, because the dispersion relation is the same here and here. You could say, okay, I can construct an eigenmode for the whole system with the interface, where I will have my positive frequency band, my negative frequency band, and the geostrophic mode here, just by deforming continuously f. But it's not possible because you cannot transform those set of vectors at a given frequency to those vectors here because of those singularities. It will be like transforming, say, two objects with different. How does it work? It's too thick. Okay, it will be a bit like you go from there. So this object is the set of all your eigenmodes. Okay, and you won't go to there, but you know that you have a difference of topological index between both of them. So a different topological. It's really a qualitative explanation, right? You to this object. So it's not possible to do this without, when you connect those two parts together, closing the gap. Why? Because there are two ways of seeing it. When you close the gap, you will have one addition. It means that you will have one additional solution. So meaning that you will be able to cut the singularity here by having another solution in your set of eigenmodes. And if you cut this, you can reconnect it that way. So another way of saying it, perhaps, is that here. Yes.
So when you computed delta C plus,
yes,
you took the positive normal mode, which is defined everywhere on the sphere.
Yes.
And you just integrated it over the sphere.
Yes.
Okay, and that was independent totally of the negative normal mode.
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay,
far
so that's why you get the sign difference.
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Yes, it's independent. But actually, another way of saying that how to connect the solution, delocalized solution from one part to the other, the bulk solution together, is to cancel those singularity. And to cancel those singularity, those states, the positive and negative must be connected somewhere, must be connected at some point. And where they will be connected, those two those singularity will cancel out. So this is what, in essence, says the bulk edge correspondence. This is that as soon as you get an edge between one material with some topological property with another material with another topological property, you need to have edge states to close the gap and to make possible the connection between the set of eigenmodes from one side to the other. So here are two materials. They are the northern hemispheres and the southern hemisphere. So, yes, 5 minutes. It gives me just the time to give you more precisely what gives the bulk boundary correspondence. It is cat 4. So it says that, so it relates really the bulk. So all I said was very qualitative. No, I'm using the correspondence. I should say that the correspondence is proved for general system in the case of 2-band system. Here we have a 3-band systems. I'm not sure it's generally proved that it should be true, but most physicists would say that it should be true generally. And in our case, we will see that it works. So we will define n plus. So here, for given a frequency omega, could be there, but within the gap, as the number of mode with positive group velocity and n minus as the number of modes with the omega dkx negative, and the bulk edge correspondence relates the difference of those two numbers in each gaps with the difference of Chern numbers in the bands here. So it says that delta C plus minus delta C 0. So this is the positive frequency band, this is the geostrophic band, equal n plus minus and minus. So in our case, it should be 2. Okay. And indeed, this is the case, because if you're in the gap here, you see that here we have 2 states going to the right, to the east. It's also true here. So this is still for the unbounded geometry. This corresponds to the gap here. When we add f here, varying between 2 omega and minus 2 omega, we have a gradient here, and this gradient lifts part of the degeneracy of the geostrophic mode. It makes those waves. But if you count along this line, we have here one state going toward the east, but one toward the west, so they cancel each other. And we have one line, one Kevin going to the east. So really, the existence of the 2 states, these related to the singularities of the bundle of eigenmodes for the unbounded geometry on the F-plane. So I wanted to make just 2 remarks very rapidly. Okay, to conclude, this gives a topological origin to those edge states. There are still many things to be understood. In particular, the correspondence says that we should have 2 edge modes going toward the east, but you could ask me, okay, why don't we have 2 Kelvin or 2 Yanai? So then we have to use some other argument than topology, symmetries, or perhaps even yes, symmetries should be enough in that case. Then the other question that we could ask is that if we can find other kind of systems with other symmetries that are broken, where we could have those topological edge states. It's not obvious a priori that a discrete symmetry opening a gap will lead to a topological edge mode. And so in condensed matter, they have classified for the various kind of operator, Hermitian, non-Hermitian, and depending on the symmetries of the operators, they have classified. You can look at those classification and look the dimension of your problem, 2, 3. This is enough for us. And then you know that if there could be a topological properties, and if yes, then we have to compute it. So for instance, we could ask whether in the case of Lamb waves, in acoustic gravity waves, there are some topological properties. And perhaps the more interesting question would be to see if there are other physical manifestations for those topological properties. So because initially, and I will finish with this, the Stern number in physics, it was introduced by Thouless in the context of the quantized Hall effect, and it was quite impressive because there was other arguments to explain the observation of the quantum Hall effect with those plateaux relating the resistivity in the perpendicular direction to the current when there is a magnetic field, and they were very the steps are really robust in the sense that you can have sample with dirt, etc., and you see those steps. So it looks like something topological, different steps. And indeed, Thouless related the existence of those steps in quantized Hall effect to Chern number. So now, could we, in our case, find similar property is less obvious because, well, there are many differences between a condensed matter system where you fix here frequency will be the energy, and you fix your energy, and you have states that are thermalized and occupy each state, etc. So there will, but this should be investigated. So thanks for your attention.
Hello? So the Euler characteristic of polyhedra is 2,
yes,
as well as for the sphere. I was wondering, again, if you can remind us, is this like equivalent or homotopic to the like an actual ball or polyhedron?
No. For that 2, I think it's more like, I'm not sure, I hope I do not say something wrong, but the Chern number for the tangent vector to a sphere, the fiber bundle of tangent vector to a sphere is 2, I think. So maybe this is related, but this is subtle because this is not the same object. Here really we have a eigenstate with 3 bands, and each of the components are complex number, while if for the tangent vector it will be just 1 complex number. So I don't know.
You could relate that to transport in the system?
Yes, that was my last. I mean, I cannot do this. But my last remark was this: is that how to relate this to transport? If you impose something, impose a current or impose a difference of potential, a difference of pressure, and you look at the response in some, I don't know how, and I don't know under which assumptions we could end up with some other manifestation than just the fact that we have the edge states.
So if I understand this correctly, if you took compute a linear spectrum of just an f-plane, which is f is equal to 1 in the northern, I mean, y equals greater than 0 and f is equal to minus 1, which we could work out presumably without knowing so much about this, then we are guaranteed that there would be something like a Kelvin and the Yanai wave in there.
Just if you connect both together, yes. There is one subtlety though, I think, is that the transition has to be continuous.
Well, that's the thing. If you make it discontinuous, you can solve it
elementary. You have to make
to see.
For the bulk edge correspondence to work. I think you have to have discontinuous. Otherwise, there may be some troubles. Something like a Yanai becoming an inertial wave. And actually, it's funny because I think that's what happens. Usually, this solution, the inertial wave in Pedlowski's book, in any book, is dismissed because non-physical. But really, this Yanai is a kind of inertial wave that would be deformed during the connection.
So I am slightly confused by when you say connecting north and south. Does it mean that if you go from north to south, then you have to encounter an edge wave which is in the equator?
Oh yes.
So it's like thinking like northern and southern hemisphere as two materials, and you are transitioning, and the equator is the boundary.
Exactly.
And that is the Kelvin wave.
Yes, and the Yanai.
Okay, and so how do we know that there have to be like only two kinds of edge waves? So
this is from this bulk edge correspondence, that we have those two singularities in the positive frequency band, 0 here, and these two singularities for the f-planes corresponds to those two edge waves that have to be there to close the gap at the interface to make possible the continuous deformation. No, it's not possible to deform them continuously, but that have to be there once you connect this solution of delocalized states in one direction to the delocalized states in the other hemisphere.
So the number of singularity tells you the number of waves, or it also tells you more about the nature of the waves?
I say the number, and it says one thing about the nature is the fact that they are unidirectional.
How?
You could, it's more than this. It's not that it is unidirectional, because you could imagine to deform the system, so that's a strange thing to have, but we could have this, right? Could have this, but really what the bulk edge correspondence says that the number of states going in one direction minus number of states going in the other direction will be like this.
So you solved this for the shadow equations?
Yes.
You think that it could be applied for 3D, full 3D, and have internal
yes,
waves?
yes, it's something we plan to do. Now, for the time reversal symmetry, for the class of symmetry of this system, I don't remember, but I think that for this problem, if we just go to 3D, it becomes a non. You should not expect a topological invariant. But then you can impose some other symmetries and recover topological invariants. So we'll have to play with different possibilities. But it's not because it works in 2D that in 3D it should work. You're right.
If you take into account the non-traditional effect like F, not the F plane, but F is on the W component. Like if you keep an equation for the vertical velocity,
yes,
you also have a component of the chorus parameter in the. Does it change something or?
But then outside of shallow water.
Well, it's shallow water, but with non-traditional effect.
It's a good question. I don't know. No. I don't know.
Thanks for your talk. Could you remind us maybe how the connection was between the broken time reversal symmetry and the last parts of the argument? Is it the fact that we have like not unidirectional but almost unidirectional?
Yes, yes.
Is that connected to the time reversal symmetry?
Yes, because this non-trivial topological number, you expect this for a certain linearized linear operator, and in particular when you have you break time reversal symmetry, it's a general result. This is classified that you can expect non-zero topological number, but once you and actually, okay, it doesn't answer to the question, but let's talk about this one. This is 0, and actually it's interesting because it is a geostrophic mode. And now what happens when you get rid of the inertial gravity waves, you filter them out, you recover the geostrophic model on the F-plane, okay? You take the unbounded F geometry, you remove inertial gravity wave, so you keep only the geostrophic mode. And then is the equation invariant by time reversal symmetry for F-plane quasi-geostrophic equation? The answer is not. They are not. And so you have removed all the modes that correspond to those that give the singularities, and those modes, those Poincaré inertial gravity waves, are related to the. This is where the breaking of time reversal symmetry plays a role. Thanks.